Oh, absolutely. There we go. Kira, this is interesting. And I'll tell you why, because I think this relates to a bigger thing. But let's listen to it, or let's look at it in a context in terms of drinking first. Kira, do you ever find that when you get into a relationship with someone, or you have friends who are in relationships with people, and they can change? You're like, I thought I knew him. I thought I knew her. Now they're a different person now that they're in the relationship.
Yes.
Well, listen, drinking too much, apparently now, blame your other half, because the study claims, right, Kira, that couples use alcohol to bond and relax together.
Okay, there's no surprises there.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lady on the phone by the name of Sara Bartel, who is a Ph.D. student in clinical psychology with Dalhousie University in Canada, and she has been studying exactly what happens to our drinking when we get into a relationship. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, and thank you for having me.
No,
You're very
listen,
welcome.
thank you for coming on. I feel a PhD student like you is going to classen up this show a bit, if I'm honest with you. I think
And I also feel that you'll learn an awful lot of information about Irish people
that's
and
right.
their drinking habits.
You're going to raise the tone here a bit, Sarah. So no, believe me, thank you when we say that. So listen, what is this research saying exactly when it comes to drinking and people who are in relationships?
All right, so we basically found that binge drinking is sort of contagious, if you will.
Okay.
So basically what we did was we looked at 179 heterosexual couples, and we followed them over 3 years, and we found that they influence each other's binge drinking. So here's an example. So let's pick a hypothetical couple.
Okay.
So let's say we have Mike and Molly.
Sure.
And Mike and Molly live together, and they're in a romantic relationship. So if we look at Mike's binge drinking in 2014, it's predicting Molly's level of binge drinking in 2017 today.
Wow.
So the more
Okay.
Mike is binge drinking in 2014, the more Molly is binge drinking today.
No way.
I understand that though.
And the reverse is true. Molly's level of binge drinking is also predicting Mike's level of binge drinking.
I know that, from my experience and from having a lot of girlfriends or whatever, when they start seeing a guy for the first time, they're out all the time. And the thing about it in Ireland is, and it's a kind of a sad thing about Irish society as well, is that a lot of the time people need some Dutch courage, as we call it here, to actually go on a date in the first place. So tend to go on an almighty session on a first date and a second date and a third date until they kind of get into a relationship where the two of them might maybe want to go for a hike on a Sunday and don't want to be hungover. But it seems to be later in the relationship that kind of happens.
That's very possible. I mean, we looked at a number of stages of relationships and couples, and we found this all the way through, but I'm sure that we didn't examine how the levels of binge drinking were different, but I've definitely seen what you're talking about in my friends as well.
Listen, Sarah, let me ask you this, because I think often that we can be very insular in Ireland. We can be very inward looking, if you understand me. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that in Canada, now I know this is talking about people who are in relationships already, but do you feel when it comes to dating and sex and relationships in Canada that alcohol plays a huge part as a social lubricant factor, if you understand me?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this isn't based on research, this is personal opinion.
Anecdotally, of course, absolutely, yes, anecdote. Don't worry, I'm not holding you to research.
I would say absolutely yes, especially in the younger populations, like 20 to 25.
Sure.
I'd say it has a huge role.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that if I went out on a date and the person that I was out on a date with wasn't drinking, well, then I wouldn't drink either. But if the person was drinking, then I would probably have a drink.
You'd keep up, of course. Well, listen, that's what I'm asking here, because we are talking about this study, of course, specifically in relation to alcohol. So, Sarah, do you have any theories as to why it happens? As in, why do couples start essentially mirroring each other's binge drinking levels? What is going on there from a more scientific perspective that you might be able to give us some insight into?
Sure. There's, I think, about 5 things that could possibly be happening, and we think they kind of all play off each other.
Sure.
So first, we think that people are more likely to select romantic partners who have similar drinking habits to their own, right? So
I suppose, fair enough, because you're going to identify with someone who's already like you anyway, am I right?
Absolutely. So you want to share the same habits with the person that you're with.
Sure.
We also know, based on theories of social influence, that as people become closer to us and more important to us, they tend to have a stronger influence over us. And we know that partners are very important to us, and we spend a lot of time with them. So the potential for influence is really strong. So people may conform to their partner's drinking because they want their partner to like them and accept them, right?
Yeah, of
course. And they
course.
think that if they engage in these behaviors, then their partner might like them.
Okay, I hear you.
They might drink together because it's a bonding experience, right? So if couples are drinking together, they're spending time together, but they also have these maybe shared experiences, crazy stories, for example, and that can kind of bring them closer. We also know, too, that the more we're exposed to a behavior, the more we tend to like it.
Really? No way.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Right. So if you're not, say, even if we have a couple, say the male isn't drinking and the female is, over time, as the male is exposed to the female's drinking, he might actually start to drink more in response to that because he actually
Okay.
And can that work in the
drinking.
opposite way then as well? Can that work where, one of the couple might be a teetotaler? Would eventually the other partner kind of give up alcohol?
We didn't study that specifically, but that's our next step, right? That would make sense to me anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, that it's not about, it's just the consumption of alcohol. So maybe if they stop consuming it altogether, the partner's also going to copy that. But I have to ask, Sarah, because I think there really is an idea that men drink more than women and that men are just more boisterous by nature. They're more, whatever you want to say, jovial by nature, and they just drink more when they go out and they're more up for having fun, etc., etc. Did you find that it was men who drank more in this and then as a result had their female partners drinking more, or did you find the ladies were drinking more? Who is drinking more?
We actually found that they're both influence each other at similar rates.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't find that there was a difference. And we know, I guess, especially in Canada, we look at the stats, women are catching up to men, are almost drinking the same amount as men anyways. So that aligns with our results as well.
Now, when you say same amount, and I'm sorry to be technical here, maybe you didn't even go into it in this level of detail, but when you say same amount, do you mean same amount like per body weight or per blood alcohol content, or do you mean the same actual amount of units of alcohol?
We just use the same actual amounts of units of alcohol.
That's surprising because obviously women are like, and I'm not trying to be general here, but women are smaller than men. Women generally weigh less than men. So if you think about it, the girl to be drinking the same as the man is really drinking a lot. Am I right?
Yep, absolutely.
Whoa. Okay then. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because lots of studies or lots of people think that binge drinking is kind of defined by 4 drinks for women and 5 drinks for men. Based on that idea.
Sure.
And we just looked at 5 drinks across the board.
Oh, wow. All right, then. Listen, that's pretty interesting. I thought that maybe they wouldn't have been as equal. But if you know what I'm saying, like I'm trying to say that it's if me and you were drinking
I understand.
because I weigh more than you and stuff and I've got more mass and all that, I can drink more alcohol and it not have as much of an impact on me.
I understand what you're saying. No, I do. I understand what you're saying.
Hey, listen, let me ask you this, right? There's always this idea that a wife is like nagging her husband to change and all of this kind of stuff, and that it's always the woman in the relationship who's like the antagonist, if you get me, to change. As in she's like, oh, you got to fix the toilet. Oh, you have to stop drinking so much. Is that actually how it is? Because, I mean, you've looked at this in pretty, great detail when it comes to drinking. Is it the woman who's always advocating change and saying, hey, we should drink less, we should go for walks more, we should see my parents? Is there that kind of trend that it's the woman doing it?
Well, we didn't actually talk to these people personally or interview them, but we found that the woman was just as likely to cause her male partner to drink more.
Well,
so I would
well
say
now,
no.
ladies.
Now, ladies, I'll tell you something. So everyone's always saying, oh, it's the men, they're bad influences, they're going out, they're partying. It looks like...
No, but I think when it comes to relationships, you come to the stage, as I mentioned previously in the interview, that like you get to the stage where you don't want to be hungover all the time. You don't want to be out all the time, and you want to start sharing kind of different adventures together that don't involve alcohol, But I think that comes kind of gradually in a relationship.
Now listen, I hear you. Well, listen, I found this fascinating. I gotta say, you know what I mean? And I'm glad to know that men aren't letting the side down too badly.
God, imagine, Chris, if I got with someone who
didn't drink
wine.
Oh, Kira, you'd finish it. I mean, there wouldn't be no way you two would be compatible. No, here's what would happen if this survey's anything to be believed by.
They'd start drinking wine.
Yeah, 3 years from now, he'd be binge drinking wine like there's no tomorrow. That's what would happen according to this survey. That see, Sarah
and then
agrees.
he'd probably be crying all the time.
Oh, no, I don't think it's going to mirror that behavior. I think it's just the drinking. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Listen, Sara Bartel is a Ph.D. student in clinical psychology. This was genuinely really interesting. Thank you so much for chatting to us.
Thank you so much for having me.